Hello, everyone, and welcome to one of our key events for this year's PolitiFest. It is going to be a debate for the 50th Congressional District, and I'm sure it's going to be a great one. My name is Will Huntsberry. I'm the education reporter for Voice of San Diego, and just want to go through some quick housekeeping for you before we get started. If you don't know who we are, Voice of San Diego is an investigative news outlet dedicating to holding public officials accountable. And that will be one of the gentlemen who wins this race comes November. And we're also dedicated to engaging and informing the public through events like PolitiFest, which you're watching right now. We want to give everyone the tools and the knowledge to be better engaged citizens and engage their elected officials. Let me just quickly thank some sponsors who care enough about their community to help sponsor this event. I want to thank the Google News Initiative for supporting the creation of this as a virtual event, the College of Arts and Sciences at USD for underwriting all student tickets, also the San Diego Foundation for supporting our community conversations. Also, thank you to Cox Communications, SDG&E, the Atlantis Group, the City of San Diego Retired Employees Association, City Heights Community Development Corporation, the San Diego Democratic Party, and Business for Good. Thank all you all for supporting this. Also, please remember, events will run through this Saturday. Check out as many as you can. Some of them are in English and in Spanish. If you miss some, we will be recording everything for you to be able to catch up later. And for this session, put your comments, please, in beneath the video, and we will hopefully get to those questions. I'll be passing them on to the moderator. And if you want to tweet on social media, we're hashtag PolitiFest2020. And I think that's all I've got. Let me turn it over to Jack Cronin from KOGO to get us started.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to everybody tuning in tonight, both at PolitiFest as well on News Radio 600 KOGO and the iHeartRadio app. This is a great partnership that we have with the Voice of San Diego. You can hear their podcast every Sunday on our station, and of course, through voiceofsandiego.org. Our 50th congressional debate tonight will cover the primary bastion of this district, which is San Diego County. And tonight, our two candidates, Ammar Campa-Najjar and Darrell Issa. We're going to start with opening statements, and then we'll go into questions. I have a series of questions here, which we'll ask to one candidate, and the other will respond, and then we'll have an open discussion. We flipped a coin earlier, and Ammar Campa-Najjar was selected to go first here. So with 2 minutes on opening statements here tonight, we're going to get right into it. Again, both for PolitiFest and the Voice of San Diego, as well as News Radio 600 KOGO. Will Huntsberry will moderate your questions and send them over as part of this debate tonight. So I will turn the floor over to Ammar Campa-Najjar, who will get us started tonight with our opening statements.
You hear me? Hear me?
A little bit. It's a little bit breaking up there, and so Will's going to jump back on and test the audio real quick. Again, let me go over as Will was saying.
Yeah, we're going to see if we can fix this right up.
So tonight, when I go over the debate here, there's a series of questions, pretty standard stuff. Each candidate will have a chance to respond when the other is asked. We'll have closing statements as well. And we'll take this to 7 o'clock here this evening before we turn it over on KOGO, when my co-host Darren Smith joins us, and we continue with PolitiFest and the great online participation. As I said at the beginning, and Will mentioned it too, the fact that people have transitioned to this online world and been able to do this and still support places like Voice of San Diego has been fantastic. So, Ammar, one more time, we'll check in with you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Take this off. Just have 1 second. Can you hear me now?
Still a little bit with the reverb there, and Will's going to jump back on here.
We're gonna get there. I think you're trying to take the AirPods off. Is that helping, Ammar? How are we now? Maybe disconnect.
Can you?
Still struggling there a little, but our tech team is on this.
Well, I tell you what. Why don't I call an audible here, and we'll go to Congressman Issa, and we'll start there, and we'll continue on here this evening as we get the technology fixed for Ammar Campa-Najjar. Congressman Issa, appreciate your time here tonight. Let's get started with what you want to tell folks here in the 50th Congressional District.
Well, good evening, and thank you for hosting this event tonight. The public access at a time of pandemic is particularly important. Having done many dozens of town hall meetings and some teletown hall meetings, they are a great way to do it, but it's an ever-evolving technology, and this next step, I think, is really making a difference, particularly with Facebook and other ways to see these on your own schedule. But tonight, what I'd like to do is I'd like to thank everyone who tuned in through the various medium for listening to a contrast of two candidates, a conservative with 18 years of experience and elected time, representing more than a third of this district for the first 12 years and representing the region for all 18 years. I'm proud of my record. I'm running on my record. I'm not running away from my record or some sort of I was here and then I'm there. That's not always what you hear in campaigns, but every group that's looked at my record, whether it's National Right to Life, the NRA, the Deputy Sheriff's Association, the Border Patrol, ICE, and the like, have found that I am, in fact, a consistent conservative, a supporter. I'm an Army veteran, and I'm a supporter of our veterans and our men and women in uniform. That's the policy and the program I'm running on. This is the opportunity of a lifetime, and I'm looking forward to it. And I'm also looking forward to Election Day after this long primary.
Congressman Issa, thank you. Ammar Campa-Najjar is back on with us here. Yeah. Ammar, let's go to your opening statement, please.
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank God. Okay. Well, my name is Ammar Campa-Najjar. It's like camping in a jar for those of you trying to figure out how it sounds over the years. I've been running for Congress for 4 years in a row. We came very close last time into the half of the district, 48.3% of you who voted for me. I want to say thank you so much for your support, for your commitment. And to those of you who didn't vote for me, I know that trust takes time, and that's what I've tried to build these past 2 years, listening, learning, and leading, and trying to be the congressman, not just for one party over the other, but actually putting country before party, meeting with Republicans and being willing to be that person to work across the aisle. I've done it before working in Washington. I was at the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I worked with Paul Ryan and Newt Gingrich and President Donald Trump and others. Didn't change the world, but I certainly was able to advocate on behalf of small businesses, cut taxes, work on trade and infrastructure. And I'm proud of that fact that I was able to multiple times be invited to talk about the things that are affecting small businesses. But look, I know every single candidate tries to tell you that they were born in a log cabin they built themselves, right? We're not special. And what makes me, I think, special is that I'm an average person from the district. I was born and raised in East County, lived most of my life in the community, almost all of it. I live in Hamul now, and I was raised with my mom. My dad left when I was young, raised through being broke and brokenhearted, worked as a janitor at the age of 15, finished college at San Diego State University, got to live out beyond my wildest dreams outside of my zip code, at the White House, at the U.S. Department of Labor, and then at the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And before I came back here, I started a small business, nothing too massive, but I was proud of how we started it. I started off my first year, we made nearly $250,000. I was proud of that. We signed the front of the check multiple times for business people I subcontracted, and I set aside that business. I made my campaign and the constituents my priority as I've continued to have my business kind of on the sidelines as I continue to do this. And the reason I'm running for Congress is very simple. I'm tired of career politicians who look down at the people we've looked up to our whole lives. Working class people like my mom who worked 2 jobs to put 2 kids through life, or my stepdad who was a retired member of the fire department. That's who I'm looking out for. We want to reward work, not just wealth. Look out for patients, not just hospital and healthcare profits, and make sure to put a world-class education within reach. And if you be my voice this election, I promise to be yours. One thing you know about me, you can call me whatever you want. I'm not a quitter. I never cut and run. This was a really tough race in 2018, but I'm back because I know where my values stand, and I'm proud to be part of this community. Thank you.
Those are our opening statements from both of our candidates here tonight in the 50th Congressional District, and thank you both. Let's move on to our questions. We'll start with Ammar Campa-Najjar, as we did with the coin flip there. We briefly mentioned it off the top, but the pandemic is perhaps the worst thing impacting Americans right now, including those here in San Diego's 50th District. if you're elected, and especially with the power of the purse in Congress, what would you do? How would you fund the response to the pandemic?
Absolutely. Look, there are things that this president got right. I know it's controversial as a Democrat saying that. I'm not a typical type of Democrat. The fact that he closed down travel from China was the right thing to do. Purely from a public health standpoint, I don't think it was xenophobic. It was the right thing to do. We should have done that with Italy too, as cases were coming in through New York. It was just smart sense to do that. What I also would have done is make sure that we kept in place the previous administration's pandemic preparedness package and systems, and made sure Congress was funding that rapid relief that we needed. It's just like when you have a fire or you have cancer or anything else, your rapid response really determines how this metastasizes over time. So I think our early response could have been a little bit better. In hindsight, is 2020. What we can do right now, and what I'm proud of, is the first stimulus package was bipartisan and we got it done as urgently as possible. What we need right now is to learn from our mistakes and do it better. What I would do is invest in PPP loans for small businesses, not those who are well off and well connected in major corporations, but those small businesses that employ half of American workers, create 2/3 of all new American jobs, that have shuttered all across our district, whether it's the salons in El Cajon or Main Street Donuts in El Cajon as well. They need the fair shot. They're the ones who are employing people. And what I would do is invest in PPP loans, make sure that it goes to small businesses and to working people. And here's the beauty of it. It also becomes revenue neutral, because every dollar that you spend on PPP to pay an employee, keep them employed, that's one less dollar that you pay in unemployment. And what I would do is take some of that unemployment money, put it into the PPP loan, and that way you save the business and the worker at the same time while reducing the costs of this very expensive economic crisis and the pandemic. That's one thing I would do. And I also would make sure that the PPP loan, the small business loan, isn't just something that Congress has to constantly figure out how to fund. We should have those, it's called the triggers. Anytime we're running low on that money, we bring it back so small businesses don't have to wait a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then they're out of business forever. Businesses that have been built for decades were gone in the blink of an eye, and we can't stand for that. In Congress, I'll make sure to put small business first.
Ammar Campa-Najjar, thank you. Congressman Darrell Issa, again with the pandemic and the perhaps financial response from Congress.
We didn't know much about the pandemic when it started. You know, it came in from China, and it came in with our healthcare professionals, including Dr. Fauci, not sure how it was spread, not sure what the contagion rate or the morbidity rate would be. We pretty much are past that. We now know that this is a disease that will probably be with us for a while. It probably will be similar to the flu in the sense that it's already mutating, so that vaccines will not necessarily take care of all of it or forever. In that case, we need to start treating it as some sort of an alien disease and rather get back to work. I think when you saw the president and former vice president debating the other night, the one thing that was clear is that there is a difference between Republicans and Democrats right now in some cases, and that is we support getting back to work, finding a way to do it safely. So in Congress, making sure that funds are available for both research on this disease and for things that might be necessary in order for businesses and, for that matter, the consumer to be as safe as possible, while at the same time recognizing that this is a disease that we're going to have to work our way through. We cannot stay locked in. The original shutdown order has dragged on for a very, very long time. And so I'm very much somebody that says elderly people like my mother living in Bonsall, of course, at 88, I don't want her out and being exposed. But for the vast majority of people, let's just say under 65, it is very much time to safely get back to work. And so the idea that PPP, paying people for not working or paying employers to pay people even when they send them home, it's run its course, and it's time to look at incentives to help people get back to work.
No, follow up here. Go ahead, Ammar.
Can I jump in?
Now,
no,
of course, and real quick here, again, I'll just for the audience, this will be an open now engagement between the two on this particular topic. Go ahead.
Yeah, two things. One, I do agree with the shutdowns being inconsistent and problematic. I've written literal multiple letters to the governor challenging his inconsistent shutting down, opening, and closing. And so to lump all Democrats together, Congressman, I think is excluding the work that I've done.
You might have noticed I said some Democrats. I didn't say you.
Great. I'm glad that the audience got to hear that as well. We're on the same page there. And I think that until we're able to fully reopen, because the fact is we're not there yet, we should be, but the state governments aren't allowing that. There are businesses that are telling me we need PPP loans and we need the PPE resources to be able to safely reopen. And so it shouldn't be going out to the well-off and the well-connected. It should be going to those on Main Street who need it the most. And that's where I think, I don't know if we disagree on that, Congressman, but I think we should be giving relief to small businesses who need it now and make sure that they're keeping people on the job, not just sitting there not working, but if they have that relief to keep them at work. I think we agree on that.
No, I think this is where you said that Governor Newsom should run for president, and I'm looking and saying he's part of the problem. The fact is that I disagree with this idea that there are essential and non-essential people in our economy. I believe that as long as an employer and employee can work safely, every business should be open. And the idea that we're continuing to shutter businesses, drive them into bankruptcy, pick winners and losers, that time has to be behind us. I watched Bed Bath & Beyond, not a small company, shutter. Well, in fact, Costco was open, but they were both selling mattresses and other items that were identical. I watched people that had grocery stores be able to be open while others weren't. I watched, candidly, I watched marijuana dispensaries be considered more important than almost any other business. So no, I think we don't agree. I think we believe that that the White House, their idea that they're willing to help with PPE and with other things to help people get back to work is a good thing. But the idea that we're going to throw another $1 trillion, $2 trillion, $3 trillion of borrowed money in order to keep people at home, I think that is foolhardy. It is inconsistent with what I'm hearing. Small businesses are telling me they just want to reopen. They're telling Jim Desmond and the other county supervisors they just want to reopen. And quite frankly, our county supervisors are yelling loud and clear to the governor that his ever-changing way of depicting who gets to open and when they get to open and his changing of the rules is very inconsistent. The fact is, you and I think, Ammar, you and I agree on this, we watch the science say that outside with some distance was a good thing, and then we watched our parks be closed. We watched our beaches be closed. As a matter of fact, we watched them be closed based on where they were in the state. So the reality is the governor has overstepped he's used political science, not actual science, and I think we've got to push back and get people open. Of course, we want to continue to provide any assistance that will be helpful to businesses that are struggling, but we also want to make sure that no governor or no other local official is closing a business and then saying you need to pay them to stay closed. Right now, I don't believe there's virtually any business that shouldn't be able to reopen, and I think you would agree.
Again, we agree.
Respond real quick and get out of the topic. Go ahead.
We 100% agree. I wrote to the governor. I said, stop picking winners and losers, those exact same lines. And I said, why are you shutting down bars and not restaurants when bars are now having to partner with restaurants to provide food to stay open? Basically, a bar is a restaurant today. So we've been saying the same thing. And I'm curious to find out when you think the cutoff period of when PPPs were appropriate, because I understand that you collected a PPP loan on May 3rd. And that wasn't too long ago. So I think you thought there was some merit to PPP loans. I just find it striking that now you're saying that it's not worth it.
And since you've been bringing this up about well-connected and not needing money, I sent every one of my employees home consistent with the instructions we got. I paid them. Nobody got laid off. And in fact, it's a loan. I haven't applied to forgive it, even though I've had a number of my tenants in our small real estate company refuse to pay because they don't have to pay. And so they're continuing to use the facilities without paying. And I've had huge economic losses. But the reality is my CFO applied for it and received that. He applied for it within a week or two, or actually on the official first date, I believe he applied for it. And it didn't get approved until May, which was long after most of them got approved. And it got approved through the regular banking relationship that we had. It took a lot longer than my friends who went to PayPal and got it approved in much less time. So, and by the way, we've paid out all of that money and more. And to be candid, I'm still sitting in an empty office because my people are still working from home, although they are starting to work efficiently again.
All right,
it is a tough time, and It is a tough time, and I do think that, Congressman, you're a man of means, success. And I guess the question a lot of people have been asking me is, why did you need a PPP loan for $150,000 on May 3rd, and then you were able to loan your campaign $150,000? You could have simply done it yourself. I've talked a lot of.
Look, if you want,
that's a question people are wondering.
No, you're spreading a rumor. The fact is, you know that I gave out millions of dollars to match my primary opponent who had already raised that money. That's forgiven. That's not a loan. I gave out $250,000 gift, not loan, well before that. So the coincidence that there was an additional number that happened to be 150, candidly, you know and I know that if you're not going to talk about the 250,000, you're not going to talk about a couple of million, then what you're really doing is trying to pick some hypothetical between one corporate entity and my personal bank account. And that's wrong, and it's beneath you, and you should do better than that.
All right, guys, real quick, we're moving on. Ammar, we're moving on here. Next topic, real quick. This goes to Congressman Issa. The Supreme Court will be on the ballot here at different levels, not in this particular race, on the Senate perhaps, and at the White House. If asked to weigh in, Congressman Issa, would you support adding additional Supreme Court justices here in the U.S.?
You know, you take Ammar and all of our ages of everybody practically here tonight, you don't get up to the amount of years that we've had 9. As a matter of fact, George Washington was practically the only president who had that smaller number. We established that number. It's been there for a long time. It's worked. Packing the court, which is what FDR tried to do, actually caused a revolt within his own party. So I think it was a bad idea then. It would be a bad idea now. The idea is only born by a party trying to get a political advantage. But I will tell you, under President Barack Obama, he said something very profound, which was elections have consequences. And he looked at us, including me, in the eye and said, if you want to have your way, win an election. Well, he had his way when he won an election. He had the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and he passed Obamacare on a purely partisan basis. And it's one of the reasons that it continues to be controversial and flawed. But the reality is President Trump won in 2016. The Senate won in 2014 and has held its majority. And that's the only reason that there's a discussion about, replacing the vacancy produced by the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And that's pretty simple. It's pretty easy to understand. And I think that if President Obama thought it was a good idea to say elections have consequences, I won, I get to do what I want presidentially, people should not be so excited when President Trump, forget about the Senate and things that were said then, but President Trump is simply doing exactly what President Obama would have done and actually did do.
Ammar.
Yeah, I don't believe in packing the courts, and I will go further. I don't think that what Obama said was pretty profound, but even more profound than President Obama. And believe me, you'll be surprised, Issa, that he was not the best president we ever had, in my view. Presidents like Abraham Lincoln, Eisenhower, John Adams, those are 3 presidents, and the only 3 that we've had in history who weeks away from an election had the choice to fill a vacancy. Weeks away. Never in the history of our country have we had it be that close. Abraham Lincoln, Dwight Eisenhower, and John Adams all decided to say, we're going to defer to the voters. They were confident they were going to win the election. I think Trump is also confident he's going to win the election. It shows confidence and deference to the electorate to say, vote me into office, vote the Senate into office, and we could have this confirmation. But you are right. It's the president's prerogative. It's his constitutional authority. He's not elected for 3 out of 4 terms. It's 4 years. It's 4 years. It's his prerogative. But there is a sense of decency in following the footsteps, not of Obama, but Abraham Lincoln, Dwight Eisenhower, and John Adams. But again, it's ultimately a moot point. You and I both know that probably before the election, we'll have a new Supreme Court justice.
Thank you both for that. I'm going to move on here, and this is because we're both on the same page there. Ammar, the next question goes to you, and it was the future of healthcare. If elected, you will likely be asked, no matter who is the president, to weigh in upon the future of the Affordable Care Act and healthcare overall. What are you proposing or looking at when it comes to this?
Yeah, I think, look, the Affordable Care Act does fall short. I was supportive of removing the Cadillac tax, and it's not the perfect panacea. Including President Obama said, if somebody could make a better plan, I will support that plan. Right now, look, healthcare is the most important thing, I think, in people's lives, not just in this pandemic, but think about it. Everybody here who was born in a hospital, you came into the world through the healthcare system, and God willing, you will leave the world through the healthcare system. And how much time you have between those two moments depends on the kind of healthcare that you have. And I think our healthcare system should be focused more on patients and less on profits. So what I would propose, and the Blue Dog Democrats, the co-chair has endorsed me, very moderate Democrats, we've proposed this idea of creating healthy competition. You know, have your private insurance if you want it. Half of Americans have it, but then create competition to lower costs and increase the quality of care. Introduce a national Kaiser nonprofit plan. Give people the opportunity to buy into Medicare a little bit earlier. If they hate their job, but they have their savings, they can get Medicare at an earlier stage, not by taking it because of single payer healthcare. I don't support single payer healthcare. I support giving people a suite of options to lower the cost. And at the same time, I would support President Trump's executive order to make sure that we lower the cost of prescription drugs by expanding to markets like Canada and other places. But we need, as the congressman knows, Congress to sign off on this to make it actionable, because we have the power of the purse. Those are the things I would do. Allow Medicare to use its weight, right? It's one of the biggest purchasers of medications. Use its weight to leverage and negotiate prescription drug costs. Like when you go to Costco, when you buy something in bulk, the individual unit's cheaper, right? The same thing Costco could do. They have a lot of customers and they can do that. And honestly, the other thing I would do is make sure that members of Congress don't have 72% of their healthcare subsidized by taxpayers. That's the closest thing to, I think, socialized medicine that we know. I know federal workers have that too, Congressman, but the difference between a federal worker and an elected official is our job as elected officials is to serve the public, not the other way around. They don't serve us, we serve them. And making $175,000 a year, I think we could afford the going rate of healthcare when people are doing it with far less.
Congressman.
Well, it is interesting. You've modified at least the recognition that that every single federal worker, whether they're in uniform or not, has a healthcare program, and every program is at least as generous as the Obamacare that members of Congress are under.
You taught me that.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to teach you the best I can.
And I'm trying to keep you honest, but that's fine.
Well, and I'm trying to keep you honest. And when you said, and I quote, single payer can become the law of the land, comma, I'll vote for it every time. In this 4-year continuous campaigning, this is what you said when you were a progressive. Okay, this is who you were. Now you're changing your position and saying you don't support single payer. You said it. Your video, your audio, and your tweets are all out there. So I would hope that you'd make up your mind, if you really have stopped supporting single payer, that admit that you were wrong and you've changed your position, and that's okay. You can do it.
Can I comment?
Now, wait a second. I'm still answering my question. And look, the answer is Obamacare did nothing to drive down the actual cost. It destroyed a lot of private programs. We have serious problems in healthcare. First of all, we have defensive medicine because of the impact of trial lawyers. We don't have a universal national protection from plaintiffs' trial lawyers that drive up the cost of healthcare. We also have an FDA system that cost at least $1 billion, even if a drug is already in use for one thing, just to certify it for something else. Those kinds of expenses are driving up the cost, the actual cost of healthcare, and we need to get rid of those cost drivers. So one of the things that Congress has a right to do is real tort reform and real FDA reform. And those are areas that should be bipartisan because they actually reduce the things that make things cost more. The one place that I differ from my party is absolutely, I think we need more competition. The FDA actually has a mandate for competition, but we need to make that mandate have real teeth in it, so we never again get somebody who's essentially a sole source for something, some generic medicine, and you find them driving up the price multiple and getting away with it.
Okay, so I wanted to just be very clear. Even the Voice of San Diego knows this. The Progressive Democratic Club almost pulled my endorsement because I wasn't progressive enough in their eyes, because I am a moderate. Back in 2017, I said that I'd be willing to work with Trump. Not something that you hear a progressive say. I have said with every caveat, these slogans that come out, as you know, there's 11 different versions of every bill. You know this, having been in Congress for 18 years. I said that I want to make sure that we had a plan, whatever you want to call the slogan.
Ammar, answer the quote. I quoted you verbatim.
No, you didn't. You didn't quote me verbatim. this is what I said. I would support any plan that reduced costs for the American people and gave them the freedom to choose their healthcare of choice. Medicare for all is not affordable. Secondly, not everybody's under Medicare for all. As you know, members of Congress wouldn't be under it, Native Americans wouldn't be under it, veterans wouldn't be on it, and people who live on tribal lands and in TRICARE also would not be part of it. What I support is Campa Care. That is my plan. Slogans sound great. You look at the details and all of a sudden you realize they do not work. And you've been in Congress long enough to know that slogans sound great. You look at the details and you say, you know what, I'll come up with my own plan. You've done that many years and I'm doing the same.
Well, and we will post it at therealammar.com, the actual quote, single payer can become the law of the land, exclamation, I'll vote for it every time. And, run away from what you've said. You were backed by the Progressive Caucus in the last campaign. There were very few blue dogs left. I appreciate that you're talking like a moderate now, but which one is actually going to work for Nancy Pelosi? The blue dog that's going to actually fight Nancy Pelosi, or the progressive that you were in your first race? I don't know which one's going to show up.
Look, first of all, the progressives hated Nancy Pelosi, number one. Number two, the blue dog Democrats are not the favorite people of Nancy Pelosi, and I've recently gotten flack from my positions of being an independent voice that will take on my party. And that's real flack that I've actually gotten. And that shows that I'm willing to stand up to my leadership. You know what, on this topic of moving back and forth, KOGO, since we're talking to KOGO, KOGO's own Carl DeMaio did a campaign and he highlighted in your own words, you said that you funded Planned Parenthood 16 times in 2018. Now you're saying that you won't do it. In the Regional Chamber of Commerce with the Voice of San Diego quoting you, you said the wall was, quote, unnecessary. Now you back Trump's wall. In 2013, okay. No, let me finish. In 2013, you said that you supported, quote, partial amnesty for 11 million undocumented immigrants. And now you have a different posture. It's okay to evolve over time. That's actually a sign of growth. But let's not just pretend like you've been consistent in your whole entire record. On Times Magazine, you were quoted saying that we need to have an independent prosecutor to investigate the Russia investigation and Donald Trump. Those are your words. It's public record. We could put it on the website, or the journalists could actually check that record. But this is not, again, the American people and our voters don't want to hear about this going back and forth.
You made your accusation. It's time to respond. Okay, I'm endorsed by the National Right to Life. Carl DeMaio was debunked on his idea that somehow I'm anything other than a conservative, pro-life Republican. I have a rating. Yes. When I stated that, in fact, the Planned Parenthood received money every year, including the years that George W. Bush was president, that's a fact. But the fact is, I'm the only person in this campaign who voted to defund Planned Parenthood. National Right to Life supports me, Planned Parenthood and Darrell support you. That's pretty straightforward. So don't try to twist the reality that pro-life people trust the National Right to Life. The gun industry, the Second Amendment industry trust the NRA, and the NRA gives me an A+, and I'm endorsed by them. When it comes to the wall, ICE and Border Patrol endorsed me in the primary, and did so because I've been consistent. When in the tens of thousands of things said over 18 years, I said, with a caveat, which you like to talk about, that if certain things were changed, the wall would be unnecessary. Well, I got to tell you, if the Palestinians weren't coming over the border and killing Israelis, the Israelis wouldn't have built a wall there. If we didn't have crime coming over our border, we didn't have coyotes coming through, we didn't have the drug trafficking, we wouldn't have built the wall. The wall south of your house in Hamul was built under Duncan Hunter Sr. Those walls were put up to protect our citizens and to stop illegal immigration. And I have supported it every single year since I came. That's who I am. And you can have a lot of fun with a word here and a word there and taking Carl's words that were obviously debunked. The fact is, you brought up one more thing, and I think it's important. I did support publicly that the Attorney General, who had met with the Russian ambassador, was in a situation that was untenable for his to be able to lead the investigation over whether there was Russian involvement in the campaign. I said that, in fact, he would have to recuse himself. I also said that using some form of the special prosecutor law was appropriate to get an independent and non-biased investigation of these allegations because they were significant. Now, we now know because of that independent from former FBI Director Mueller, we now know that, in fact, the president had nothing to do with anything wrong, and he's been cleared. What hasn't been cleared is Vice President Biden and the Democrats, including your former boss, Barack Obama, who clearly knew they were spying on this president and that working with the Russians to create a fake dossier. That's the reality. So it was painful for the Trump family. It was painful for our country. But at the end of the day, the president's been cleared, and your party has been shown to have, in fact, attempted to have, if you will, a coup on this president. So, you know, I'm willing to work with anybody, and I work with people even after conflict, but I'm not willing to have the actual change. Okay. You know, you said, wait a second, 1 second more. You said that you work with the president, but you secretly recorded him based on what you said to Rolling Stone. You secretly recorded the president while you were telling him he built his empire on illegal immigration. So, you know, this idea that you're some sort of a moderate, you can invent that, but I have a record, and that record, when looked at by the people who keep score, I win every time with those scores.
Well, first of all, in your last race, the Border Patrol endorsed your opponent. So they haven't consistently supported you because your positions haven't been consistent. That's number one. Number two, you said that you, quote, have funded Planned Parenthood. You, not Bush, you funded Planned Parenthood 16 times, and that if you were elected in 2018 again, that you would fund it again. Those are your words. But this is not what
you know what? He's right. He's right. If he's going to keep saying things that aren't true, let's just move on.
That's literally, we'll put it on the website. It's public information, verbatim. But let's not get derailed here. Here's what I want people to know about this race. It's not about me or Congressman Darrell Issa. It's about the people in this district who want to cut through the noise and want to know who's going to make sure that they could live, work, and retire with dignity. I've been campaigning how I will legislate. I've been out there talking to people. I've been there with them. I know what keeps them up at night because it keeps me up at night at Hummel. Are we going to have to evacuate again? Is this pandemic going to keep our businesses closed for a while? How are we going to be able to afford next month's rent? I've gone through that personally, and I've been a moderate since day one, willing to work with Trump. I've said slogans sound great. Every policy from Medicare for all to the Green New Deal, every time that's been brought up, I said, if they are revenue neutral, if they don't put us in a national debt, if they don't take away people's freedoms, I'll take a look at it. They don't pass that litmus test for me. And I've said that in every single statement that you can find. If you place the whole quote, you'll find that. But let's get off this subject.
It'll be on therealmar.com.
All right, here we go. So I have a question from the Voice of San Diego. They are asking this of all their panelists here throughout PolitiFest. And I believe we were on Congressman Issa for the first response here. Your positions are on Prop 15 in California. This is being asked across the Voice of San Diego platform here this week. The increase on commercial property taxes, or the difference in the split roll.
Look, Prop 13 has not stopped this state from becoming the highest tax state in the country. And the idea that a power grab, a money grab by our state, the first of many, it's not going to quit. When I came to the state, the top tax rate was 9.3, one of the highest. One at a time, 9.3, 10.3, 11.3, 12.3. We're now at 13.3%. We are absolutely the highest income tax in this country. But the idea that we're going to simply find another way to do that is absurd. The fact is, we are already overtaxed in this state. I pay my taxes. I pay a lot of taxes. My opponent has not paid many of his taxes. As a matter of fact, he's been in default multiple times on his taxes, and his company's been suspended. But I pay my taxes. But paying my taxes gives me the ability to say it isn't fair to continually try to find tax increases, and Prop 15 is just another tax increase.
Okay, well, I could go into discrediting what he says, but you could go on the government website. I have an active business. It's still active. And I've made the constituents my priority since I've run for Congress. My first year in business, I made $250,000. I bet you I could have made millions if I stayed there, but I focused on the constituents. And I've taken a personal hit in the process. That's my commitment. I'm putting it all on the line. As it relates to taxes in California, the reality is we're in a recession. We shouldn't be raising taxes at all in California. So across the board, I do not support raising taxes. California pays more taxes to the federal government than any other state in the union, as big as we are. Every year, Jack, we don't get out of the system what we put into it. We're subsidizing other states. It's time that we get our own tax dollars from the federal government brought back to fix our roads, to be able to improve vegetation with wildfires and management of that, to fund our public schools like the one in Alpine that we still don't have. It's having to fold in the high school with the middle school nearby. We need to invest in our people, and we need to put our own tax dollars back into people's livelihoods. And that's why I do not support raising taxes during a recession in California.
All right, we got about 6 minutes left here before our closing statements, and let's continue, Ammar, your question here. Along those veins, San Diego at times has not had, perhaps proportionally or its population-wise, its share of funding to combat the homeless crisis. How do we fix that in San Diego?
Look, we have the 4th biggest veteran homeless population in the country, and we are 20th in HUD funding. We are 4th in need, 20th in supply, and 1st in the nation as a state to pay federal taxes. There's a mismatch there. We need to take care of our homeless veterans, give them wraparound services, not just here's a home, but mental health services, vocational training that I worked on at the Department of Labor, helping people retrain and retool and re-enter the workforce to be with their kids again and inspire their kids and reconnect communities. I worked at the Department of Labor doing that. And if I'm in Congress, I will fight in Congress to make sure that we render all these crazy California taxes obsolete because we're getting money from the federal government that we're owed. All these tax plans, the gas tax and everything else, it's a double tax on the same service that Congress has failed to deliver. And after 18 years in Congress, we still don't have infrastructure reform. We still don't have immigration reform. We still haven't done so many things. I think that we should have fresh legs to do this work and finish the job. My opponent said that when he retired 2 years ago, he said his words, he had been in Congress for too long, 18 years in Congress. He said, I should have left too. I said, where do we pick up the pieces and move on? Because there's things that we agree on, depending on what district he's in. But there are genuinely things that we agree on. And I hope when I'm in Congress, I could lean on him to finish the work that he started.
Well, I look forward to having you as a constituent when I return. You know, my 2 years.
I can't say the same because you don't live in the district, but go ahead.
I do live in the district. My 2-year sabbatical has certainly given me an opportunity to rest. So I've never been more excited about the job. The fact is, I'm one of over 300 people that were filibustered after being nominated by the president to head an important agency. That happens. It's hard-nosed politics, and I certainly understand rough and tumble. But I'm looking forward to going back with my 18 years of seniority, being at the top of the dais and being able to get things done. Unfortunately, my opponent had missed one point. When it comes to those roads he mentioned, the fact is that the federal government runs out of tax revenue from the earmarked road taxes long before we get enough to take care of our roads. One of the reasons is it costs more to build roads in California than virtually any other state. This state has to get its act together and start building roads, not based on not just prevailing wage, which I do support, but these various plans that drive up the cost of healthcare. Drive up the cost of building roads, drive up the cost of mitigation of land. We've made our roads unaffordable, and we need to change that. But I got to tell you, a lot of that is self-inflicted wounds in California. When it comes to our veterans and when it comes to getting our fair share, I fought to get our fair share. I voted for the Choice Act. I voted again and again, and I did investigations that revealed that bureaucrats working in the single-payer system, the VA, were throwing away here and around the country. We were throwing away people's appointments, and they were literally dying waiting to get in. That's why today a veteran can go and get outside health care, something I not only support, but I want to expand so that every veteran can get care where he or she wants to, where he or she lives, and get it in a timely fashion. When it comes to the homeless problem, no question at all, our veterans should be taken care of disproportionately with federal dollars and federal help. But we have a homeless problem that is far beyond that. I've worked with Solutions for Change for more than 20 years and other groups to recognize that we have to transition people from not being employable, from being drug addicted, from being in some other way unemployable. And that's a plan where, and Ammar mentioned this, the federal government has a role to make sure that in many cases, funds for helping retrain those people, teach them a skill so that they are employable, can in fact be an important part of it. But I got to tell you, when you look at organizations of faith, something that under President Obama was done away with, but under George W. Bush, we empowered organizations of people of faith that were willing to be compassionate and help people get out of many of their dependencies, sometimes including faith training. That continues to be something that in East County and North County and in Temecula, people believe in. So there's a lot of solutions. I've fought for them. I have a long history on it, and I'll make sure we get our fair share.
Real quick, we have 60 seconds each before closing comments if Ammar, you want to respond.
Yeah, sure. Look, I will start where where I ended and where the congressman picked up on. He himself has said it was time for him to move on. He has great ideas, but I can
Don't you
bring
want
those
to answer
ideas
the
to bear.
actual question?
I already answered the question.
Oh, good.
That's why you're responding to it. I answered it. I talked about, you actually agreed with half the things I said. You just mentioned that. So let me go ahead and make my point. Look, I don't want to attack you on these things personally, Congressman. You talked about my taxes. Right now, you're going through a lawsuit in Ohio with the local schools because you're not paying your full property taxes, is what they're claiming, and they'll adjudicate that. So let's not talk about that. Let me finish. Let me finish.
I am.
Let me finish. And you talked about funding for roads in our communities. The San Diego Union Tribune, Jeff, O'Donnell, whatever his name is, said that there were questions with the earmarks that you made, that you tried to steer $8 million to properties to elevate the value of your properties. So that's the kind of contrast people need to know. If you want to air out that stuff, we could air out that stuff. But I didn't want to go there. You wanted to go there. I frankly think we actually agree on the policy, but I think you've just been there long enough to where it's time for some fresh legs. Our founders never believed in career politicians. You yourself did it when you resigned, and now you're changing your tune on whether or not you should be a congressman now, or if it's time for you to retire. You yourself said it was time to retire. Now you're changing your tune.
Okay, it's an interesting thing. You say you don't want to do personal attacks, but you've had paper and robocalls out there doing personal attacks behind the scenes. So in fairness, you're being disingenuous, and that's how we like to call
you. Literally on
one thing does another. But let's get into the specifics, and I'll get into them quickly.
You attacked me first on KOGO, calling me a terrorist, and Carl DeMaio called you out. Let's be very frank. And Carl, yes, you did.
You had your 60 seconds. Now it's my 60 seconds for rebuttal. The fact is, I happen to have a building in Ohio. Building we tried to sell, it didn't sell. All we've asked is that when it was appraised for the below the price we tried to sell it for, we'd like to get it down to the price we'd like to sell it for because it's gone down in value. The reality is we're not suing, we're appealing to try to get our property tax where it should be. Having said that, my opponent has spent a lot of time trying to make allegations and using the Union Tribune's bad history. The reality is that I got money for an area of my district that Sandag and the city council had both voted for and asked for, and all I did was forward that address. After I forwarded it, they got $800,000. After they got $800,000, which was all public, posted on my website and those other websites, after they got the money, I happened to buy a fully occupied piece of property. After I bought that piece of property, the road never got expanded, but the money sat there and it sits there even today. What's interesting is when that came out, I was so concerned about making sure there wasn't any appearance of impropriety. I sold the building. I took a $2 million loss, not a gain on that property. Sold it for less within a few years, so there'd be no question at all. It was fully occupied when I bought it. It was fully occupied when I sold it. I don't do land development. I happened to buy a medical building where, in fact, one of many requests for funds had been forwarded. If you were a businessman with real estate, you'd understand you cannot profit from helping get somebody money, and then after it's public, making an offer to buy the property because the value has already gone up if it's going up. The UT got it wrong. You got it wrong.
All right, we're going to closing statements here. Ammar, you're up first here. 2 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry that this turned into kind of a fight back and forth. I am not here to defend myself or fight for my record. The congressman spent a lot of time trying to defend his record. I am here to fight for the people of our district. I have literally done everything I could. I was making good money as a small business owner and working in Washington. I came back home, came back to my district to give back because I would be nowhere without this community. I'd be in 91935 and I would have never been able to go beyond my community. I came back home and tried to do the best that I can. And my sincerity lies in the fact that I ran a very difficult race. It was hard. Issa had a tough race too in 2016. The difference is I decided to keep with it. I didn't cut and run. I'm not saying that he did. You guys could decide if he did that. I decided to keep going. And I will never forget the community that I came from. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, that's where they're voting for me. This race is super close in the Republican district. Clearly, the things that the congressman is saying cannot be true in a district that's a R+12, where me and him are neck and neck. And I built trust over time for the past 4 years, listening to you, what keeps you up at night, what gets you going in the morning. And I hear your stories and I think about the plight of my own family, what we've gone through, struggling to make ends meet, seeing my mom play that sad game of solitaire, not knowing which bills can she pay and which bills she just take away from eyesight to make sure that I had lunch money she wouldn't pay for her medical bills. That's the struggles that we go through in this working class district. And I've been there through the fires, volunteering my labor and love, showing up to evac centers, going to hospitals and delivering food. That's the kind of local congressman I'll be. I'm not going to be missing in action. I won't phone it in. And many Republicans that I'm actually campaigning with, canvassing every day with Republicans who are running for county board of supervisors in our district who are saying, you show up more than Congressman Darrell Issa does. He's phoning it in. He's already forgotten us. Not my words, theirs. And I promise you, if you elect me in the next 33 days, we're going to make history. We're going to have a not typical Democrat who will stand up to his party, have the political courage like I did when I said we should repeal the gas tax. I got a lot of flack for that. But I've always stood up on principle. And if you want somebody who put country over party and people over their own profits, I'm your man. So I hope you'll give me a shot.
Congressman Issa, your final statement tonight, please.
You know, my opponent has wants to say that I've been defending myself, but in fact, the robocalls and the fake polling and the attack pieces that he's done, quite frankly, say something different. They say that in fact, he's desperately trying to continue what happened in the primary, which were false allegations that we disproved, false allegations about where I stood on the border wall, false allegations of where I stood on life, false allegations on my history. When I came to Congress, I sold my business and I put all of my money in one of two things, either mutual funds, not individual stocks, or fully occupied property. I've never done any property development. I've never done anything that would in any way be anything more than buying some existing rental properties. I've actually sold them off. I haven't bought any more in years. I have less than half of what I had. And the reality is I haven't made a lot of money on them because I haven't been a developer. And that's okay, because I made enough building a business from scratch. Like Ammar, I came from a working class family. I'm one of 6 kids. 4 of us are still alive. 2 died very young. I saw my mom struggle. I saw my father die having worked 2 jobs, 2 full-time jobs, until he died of a heart attack at age 50. I'm very aware of how hard it is. I built a business from scratch. I built it up to one that means that I never have to work again, and I'm able to set the money aside and just do the job. So, you know, am I dedicated? Yes, this is what I do. I'm a public servant. I was a public servant when I went to the Army and as a 17-year-old. I continued to be a public servant throughout the time that I was building my business and raising my family, working for with all the various groups, including nonprofits, including homeless groups, but also including the U.S. Chamber, the San Diego Chamber, and so on. I'm pro-business. My opponent literally called the U.S. Chamber of Commerce the devil, and that's
not true.
Well, it's your voice on the audio, so it's pretty obvious. We'll post it. People can listen to you saying that in fact you were with the Hispanic Chamber, which is more liberal, and in fact the U.S. Chamber is the devil.
All right, we got to wrap it up here.
Statement. I run on my record. It's a tough business. You got to be tough to be there. I'm tough enough to go back and do it right. And I've done it for 18 years, and I'll run on my record proudly.
We're tough enough to not run away from your old district.
Thank you very much.
No reason for you to be in mine.
Ammar, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it back over to Will Huntsberry. Thank you all for listening tonight on News Radio 600 KOGO, for listening on the iHeartRadio app, and of course, being parts of the Voice of San Diego. Will, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Jack. That was an amazing debate we all just got to watch there. Thank you all for spending time with us at PolitiFest. We still have tomorrow. We still have Saturday. Tons of good sessions coming up. If you aren't subscribed to our newsletters, please subscribe to them to help you stay engaged with all the most important San Diego politics. To get those, you can go to voiceofsandiego.org/newsletters. And yeah, I want to thank everyone again. That was a great debate, and hope to see you all at the rest of PolitiFest.